Alchemy Coach School Lesson 3, The Alchemy of Unrequited Love. Hi friends, it's Lynn here, and let's tuck into the work for today. There are few things more disorienting than offering your love openly and honestly and having it go unmet. Whether it's a partner who pulled away after promising connection, a long-standing relationship that never deepened the way you hoped, or a bond that felt meaningful to you but was never fully acknowledged by the other person. The experience of unrequited love can leave a mark that's hard to explain. It can feel like grief, but also like shame. It can trigger questions not just about the relationship, but about your worth, your judgment, and your sense of reality. And many people carry these wounds silently, whether the pain, and they're unsure of whether the pain is even valid, if the relationship was undefined or unresolved. But regardless, the impact is always real. From the perspective of the soul, this kind of heartbreak is not incidental. It's not a detour. It's often a moment of significant internal recalibration, like a pressure point that brings these buried beliefs, unresolved attachments, and deeper spiritual needs. They all come up to the surface. And this is the soul at work. And in the language of alchemy, it's the beginning of transmutation. At least it's an opportunity for transmutation. Whether or not we take that opportunity, that depends on how willing we are to go toward the thing that we fear the most, okay? Unrequited love pulls up a particular kind of pain. It touches the part of us that longs to be chosen, seen, and wanted, not just romantically, but existentially. It exposes vulnerabilities that are often rooted far earlier than the relationship itself. Old abandonment patterns, unprocessed grief, attachment imprints, and unspoken needs can all be stirred up by the absence of reciprocation. But instead of moving into that material consciously, many people just try to get over it. They downplay it, they reframe it, or they try to force clarity through logic. These are coping mechanisms. The thing is, your emotional system is not logical, and neither is the soul. In spiritual alchemy, the soul isn't interested in resolving things quickly. It's interested in transformation. And sometimes the experience of unreturned love becomes a catalyst for deeper examination, not of the other person's behavior, but of what the heart is truly trying to resolve. The soul uses the intensity of longing to bring old pain to the surface. And, it's not so that you can wallow in it. It really is not. It's so that you can finally look at it clearly. And this is where you have to start burning, calcination, dissolving what's not pure. But we'll talk more about that in the future. This isn't about blaming yourself for loving someone who didn't return your feelings. It's not about moralizing desire. It's really about taking the experience seriously enough to ask what is revealed. For many people, the revelation includes patterns of emotional overgiving or self-abandonment, a history of being drawn to emotionally unavailable or ambivalent partners, a tendency to confuse longing with love, a deep ache for validation that was never fully met in early life, a fear of being too much or not enough, depending on which part of the self is activated. So when these patterns surface, the task isn't to shut them down. The task is to work with them, to see them as the material of transformation. You're not here to fix your flaws, but you need to figure out what your psyche is working toward, because this is about moving toward that kind of death of the old self so that the new self can rise. So this is where transmutation begins. All right. Your soul is not punishing you when it brings someone into your life who doesn't reciprocate, but it is presenting you with a very specific lesson that your value is not determined by whether or not you are chosen, that love is not something you must earn. That connection rooted in fantasy or projection cannot hold what your deeper self is asking for. All right. This is the time for you to turn inward. You need to have a willingness to grieve without rushing. You have to stop negotiating for crumbs, okay? And, understanding that you long for love, this is not something that's shameful, but it does need a more honest and powerful container. For women like you who are called to become coaches, this kind of experience is often formative. It's teaching you something, right? And it's not because it makes you wise because you're suffering, woe is me. I'm that tragic heroine. That used to be my banner, okay? The thing is, this thing forces you to confront yourself in a way that a polite life does not bring you into, okay? We're alchemists, my friend, all right? We're alchemists. We go hard. So this kind of work, unrequited love, pulls you into the emotional underworld where real insight can come out. It can emerge. And it's not just about relationships, but who you are at your core, what you need, and what you've been carrying. And that is what the soul is after, not surface relief. We're looking for deep, deep change. So this is not healing in the sense of going back to how things were. Okay, we're not trying to get you back to, your inner child or anything like that. We're trying to help you break through, bringing in your badass butterfly self. That's our job right here, right now. So, we're not trying to get you to find a new person to replace the old person. And we're sure as hell not trying to get you to live by yourself and to be good with that. That's not what this is about, okay? But it's really about letting the structure that made the dynamic of unrequited love possible dissolve completely so something stronger, clearer, and more whole can emerge in its place. That is transmutation. That's our job as alchemists and alchemy coaches. And the thing is, our coaching work doesn't begin with clarity and confidence in us. It begins with the pain that we have experienced and the pain that refuses to be dismissed until we walk through it and we claim what is rightfully ours, which is freedom from the pain, which is freedom from separation. And, we deserve a soul that refuses to stay small, and we need to let that aspect of us shine. What makes this process alchemical is that it doesn't simply resolve pain. It works with pain to create something new. In alchemy, transformation doesn't happen by discarding the unwanted material. It happens by subjecting it to fire, to pressure, to dissolution, by keeping it in the process until it reveals what's essential. This includes emotional experiences like heartbreak. The soul doesn't throw them away once they become uncomfortable. It draws them inward and begins a process of reconstitution. In this case, the unrequited love becomes the base material. What gets burned away are the projections, illusions, and compensatory patterns, like that need to be chosen in order to feel valuable, or the habit of attaching quickly to unavailable people. I'm giggling because I keep seeing my old patterns here, and I'm like, I'm just telling on myself. What remains is not a tougher version of you, but a clearer version of you, a person who sees without fantasy, a person who chooses love without collapsing into it. Alchemical transformation also happens in stages. There is the fire that brings the issue to the surface, and then there is this dissolution that softens your previous certainty and identity. You thought you had it together. Okay, like a caterpillar eats and molts. Okay, it eats, it grows, it bursts through its skin. Okay, you gotta keep refining. That's what this is about. All right. There's a fermentation stage where you sit in the unknown for longer than you want to. You got to be uncomfortable. And eventually, if the process is allowed to complete itself, there's a kind of reformation. All right. You begin to understand something new about yourself, not intellectually, but viscerally. Like, this has to be in your body. It can't just be in your mind. This is the problem. All this shit happens in our minds. And we think, oh yeah, I've reached it. And then we get thrown for a loop. It's because it was only in our minds, and not even in the whole part of our minds, just in our conscious mind, which is really a small, tiny, itsy bitsy part of who we are. We need this stuff to happen viscerally, like it gets down into our bones, into our guts, into our deep subconscious, into our viscera. All right. When that happens, your boundaries can shift, your perception sharpens, and you are, you're available for change. So these shifts cannot be taught in theory. They have to be lived through. All right. That's why you can't read a book. That's why reading great books, it's great. It's a great experience, but they don't change you. All right. What changes you is living. All right. And going out and experiencing life and tempting the universe so that it can send you that bad boy. And you can see if you've learned the lesson or not. All right. If you fall for his cologne and those deep brown eyes. These emotional ruptures, especially in love, are really, really powerful. They take us into a space that cannot be controlled, and they invite us to let go of the stories we've used to protect ourselves. And it's not so that we can be punished, okay? I got to keep saying that. Nobody's cursed you. Nobody's punishing you, all right? Your soul is just trying to get whole, and that doesn't have anything to do with anybody else but you, yourself, and you, all right? So keep in mind also that alchemy does not rush, okay? It doesn't guarantee comfort. As a matter of fact, you should probably not expect any comfort when you're doing alchemy work, but it does deliver hardcore clarity, like boom, clarity. And then when you get it, you own it. Nobody's taking your shit away from you. Can't nobody touch you when you do this work. All right. And that's why we do it. Okay. Now, for you as a coach in the context of your calling, especially, you're trying to help other people. You need this clarity. Okay. This is the difference between offering advice and holding presence. All right. You can't give what you don't have. All right. You can give a lot of love to your clients. But if you don't have the transformation, you can't give the transformation. Okay? This is the work that makes you ready. And this is not about mastering anything. It's more about allowing yourself to be changed by the depths of the divine feminine. Now, before you go on to the next lesson, all right, go into the Alchemy Coach School community to download the companion worksheet for this unit. You see how deep this work is? You see how important this work is? Go get the worksheet, all right? And when you're done, or as you're doing the worksheet, check in, take a picture of what you're doing and put it in there so that I can see it and give you some feedback, okay? Take your time with this work. This is lesson 3, so we have one more lesson in this unit, then we're going on to the next unit. There will be another worksheet. Remember, there's one worksheet every 2 weeks, and there are 4 lessons in that 2-week period. The lessons are delivered on Mondays and Thursdays, okay? All right, friend, signing off. Bye for now.